Hi, welcome back. Another live stream. Yes, more painting. I'm still on holiday, so the painting continues, the questions continue, and the chat continues. And I'm painting our Yuan-Ti many-headed, well, it almost seems like a Hydra, doesn't it, in many cases, but it's not a Hydra. So yes, I'm going to do the detail work on this Anthemia, the Yuan-Ti Anathema. So if you've got paints and miniatures, feel free to join along with me. Grab your brushes. I will talk, you can paint, I will paint, we'll have a good time. If you're not into painting, feel free to just ask me questions and just listen to the chat if you want to, or take part. I will be running a poll like I have been for most of these painting streams. So let's get straight into it, shall we? Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Weller and today I'm painting a miniature, the Yuan-Ti Anathema. It's almost like a beholder, but it's not a beholder. I have got the main colours on. We're going to do some detail work today, going to try to get as much of it done as we possibly can, and then we'll move on to the next thing, or the next miniature, or the next stage, or whatever happens. I have a few layers of paint to cover. So I'm on holiday, so this is very informal. Feel free to chat with me as you like, or just paint miniatures by all means. That's all cool. Ask me whatever questions you like. That's fine too. And I'm going to run a poll today. And the poll for today is, when do you think players should reveal character information and details in a roleplay group? Now, that's in the game, but in a roleplay group. So that's the question. I'm going to put that up. Feel free to answer that. If you don't want to take part in the chat, that's fine. How's it going, Gabby, Nicola? How's it going? Hi, Todd. Hello. And we have already a bot in here. So bot destruction will occur now. Unwanted bot commercial, I don't know what it is, but the bot has been removed. You are extinguished from existence. Okay. So my next colour, I'm going to actually tackle the green here. I used the troll skin, which was a very dark green. I'm now going to move to a lighter green. This is Feywild Emerald. I'm going to put that on. I'm probably going to wet down. It seemed to work reasonably well, and it's replaceable, so I don't have to worry about having to have an expensive wet palette or anything like that. I'm just going to use a paper towel. That's right, a paper towel. So I'll tear off a little bit of paper towel. I'll dampen that. Stick it in the middle of my tray and put my paint on that, and that should hopefully keep it damp while I work, since it's going to take a little while. It's not quite as hot today, so that's going to help. I thought while I was doing this that I would chat about character survey questions, things that you can get your players to ask or answer, whether you do these surveys before the game session or during the game session. Probably not a good idea. After the game session, at some point, but probably not during game sessions. And there's a whole lot of information. If you go and look on the internet, you will find that these are quite common, these sorts of surveys. And then of course they get transposed into Dungeon Master manuals and guides and things like that. Okay, so I'm working with that colour. I'll put that out now. What's that, Gabby? Anthemia. I think it means anti-something. Well, it could be. So anti-human, fully shredding humanity, embracing the divinity. Yeah, absolutely. Or at least that's your interpretation. No, that's fine. I can see that. That makes sense to me. All right, let's put out about that much. I'm going to use quite a large brush and then shift over to a smaller brush after, for those of you who are wondering. We've only got one more layer of for the base in terms of greys, so I'm going to do that near the end, where I'm pretty much sure I've finished. What's this, Todd? Introduced a mimic to my group last session. Okay, the wizard tried shocking grasp to get away. What are your thoughts on that? My thoughts on look, the mimic is really a creature which is a gimmick nowadays. It was not so much of a gimmick, but it is generally a trap monster. It's a gimmick. You usually don't die to it. It's usually somebody gets stuck to it, and then everybody else moves back and kills the thing, while the other individual, very, very do they actually eat a character. or kill a character. That doesn't happen that often. Certainly 5th ed edition, it's not likely, not given the way that it's been built. So I think that Shock and Grasp is perfect, because Shock and Grasp means it's now stuck to the Mimic, which makes it fairly complicated. I don't know why the wizard thought that it was a good idea to try to use any kind of thing that meant touching it. But that's fine. Maybe that's all they had in terms of tools. Again, that's up to the players to decide. I find that Mimics primarily are they are solo. They tend to be used as a solo monster, and as a result they tend to be easy to dispose of. Nobody's particularly scared of them. The concept of, oh, look out, that treasure chest could be a Mimic. The joke is well known. Even outside of Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of people seem to know this joke. The other thing to remember is, I think a lot of people, when they are encountering a Mimic, assume that it's not going to do anything strange. So mixing it up with a new group, I wouldn't do that. But yeah, getting stuck to a Mimic is the standard operating procedure, and then everybody else steps back, laughs at them while they pummel the creature with ranged attacks until it's dead. Usually in the first round, possibly in the second round. And you may wind up with a character who goes down, but that's probably about it. Do you have weapons stick to the Mimic? Yes, I certainly do. Anything that touches the Mimic, so I often will have multiple weapons stuck to the Mimic. Arrows stick to it. If they hit them, getting them back off is pretty difficult. Not that you usually want to do that. Any kind of melee weapon is going to attach itself, so you would have to have a good array of weapons if you're a melee-based character. And really, I feel like a lot of people shouldn't build just a primarily melee-based character, because you have just made it more difficult for yourself than you really needed to. You should always have some sort of ranged. You don't have to be good at it, but some sort of range, some sort of melee if you're a martial character. So yes, absolutely, everything sticks to it. You touch it, it sticks. The Mimic can choose whether something sticks to it though, but it's probably going to make sure the weapons stick to it so that they can't be used against it again. Does that make sense? So yeah, that's how I usually play it. I think the stat block kind of gives you enough information there to suggest that's how it's supposed to be played, as far as the designer's intent. But there's nothing stopping you from changing any of that. Now, I conducted a poll. I believe that there was a poll conducted on the channel about whether I should do some video content or live content on modifying monsters. 11 people voted. 11 people. That shows me straight away that it's just not going to be a topic. Even if it is useful to somebody, it's just not a topic that's going to work. So that ultimately means that you probably won't see that. Which is a shame, but yeah, I said I would put up a poll and see what people's interest is in it. I'm not against doing the topic. It's just, what's the point if hardly anybody's going to watch it? And that's exactly what I get the impression from that poll. How are we doing? We're doing all right. Cool. Before the session, okay. No, look, if that helps you, Todd, that's great. I'm kind of curious as to how you had it approached. Monks are in a really bad spot with a Mimic because they punch everything, but that doesn't stop them from using ranged attacks, because they do have the ability to throw darts. They can make ranged attacks. They don't have to punch everything. And because it's so slow, if you don't get stuck to it and you know what it is, then it's just a matter of just moving back and just destroying it fairly effectively too, because it moves so slow, and the characters are all probably moving about 30 feet, and it's moving is it 10 feet? 10 or 15 feet? It's not very quick. I'm pretty sure it's 10 feet. They're very, very slow. It's one of the reasons why I think Mimics should have a teleportation ability, just to make them a bit more survivable, because it doesn't make sense that they would be able to survive at all. Getting a little bit dry. Okay, so some more of this Feywild emerald. And keep painting this miniature. Now, the character survey questions that I was starting to talk about before I kind of got distracted, by all means continue to distract me. I have a number of questions that I think that players need to consider answering, or dungeon masters could present, and when you reveal them, I'm not really too concerned. I put the poll up because I really wanted to know what people thought. I don't think there's really a hugely wrong or right answer. I tend to do a lot of my character revealing during gameplay, but that's very much the style of play, and since I'm an older player, that's what we used to do, is we did all of that sort of during the game. We made it part and parcel of a feature, and we wouldn't necessarily just do an info dump. You'd reveal small bits of information as you go, as part of the story, part of the show rather than tell. Show them rather than tell them. I was in it was in Venom Fang's tower with all the other treasure. Ah, all right, that's a cool idea. Why not? I can't see a dragon having too much problems with a mimic. I don't know that necessarily a mimic is going to get eaten by a dragon or killed by a dragon. And it does sort of it certainly does change things up. I know that with a lot of treasure hoards, I've made treasure hoards a golem. So a golem treasure hoard that comes to life and attacks the party, which is intensely more fun than some of the other things you can do with a treasure hoard, which is just basically, it's a treasure hoard. So fighting the treasure hoard can be a lot of fun. So I've done that. But yeah, I like the idea of the mimic as inside the treasure hoard as part of a dragon's treasures. That sounds like a very cool idea, actually. Would have added an extra element to the game that you probably wouldn't have had before, which is cool. Okay, so questions. Like, why did you choose this adventuring life? This is like a character question. It is probably one of the most important questions that players need to ask themselves with regard to their character. Like, why did you decide to take part in doing this sort of activity? Because it's dangerous. You know, it's not what most people do. So there must be a pretty good reason for doing it. And is that reason solely just for make money? Because there are probably easier ways to make money than going and killing monsters and taking their stuff. Because that's a very dangerous pursuit. It is much easier to just go and steal all of that, robbing people on the road, right? So why do it that way? And there are other ways of, you know, not that there's anything particularly fun about role-playing fraud in a Dungeons and Dragons game. What do you got here, Nick? What's that, Gabby? What's it? Have them anything. Have them anything. Even people or animals. Yes, mimics could be pretty much anything you like. It can even be in groups. Yes, I've done them in groups. I've made buildings, mimics. Gets invited to a party among others, and the organisers and the other party guests or goers prove to be mimics. Yes, they used to call them mirrors. In Dungeons & Dragons 4e, we used to call them a mirror. It was a special type of mimic. Not so much a doppelganger, but a mirror. So what they would do is they would mirror something they had seen before, and it was a living creature. The only difference is they did not have the ability to take on or learn all of the nuances of that particular character. It was just their appearance. So they could appear as some sort of humanoid, but they couldn't really act as a particular humanoid. That was very much a sort of a doppelganger thing, rather than the mirror or mirror mimic. I believe all mimics would try to kill young dragons, given how dangerous they are. Yeah, possibly, but I don't think a mimic has a chance of taking out a baby dragon, honestly. They fly, they breathe, they've got a breath weapon. They've usually got a fair number of hit points, even a wormling. And a young dragon is still much more dangerous than a mimic. Significantly stronger a dragon than a mimic would be. So yeah, I don't know that that's necessarily going to be the case, that they would be able to do that. If you've got maybe an older, ancient, huge mimic, then maybe that might be much more likely. Okay, so back to questions. So understanding why your character's taken on that adventuring life. The next question, I think, that so many people fail to actually sort of deal with, and they should be dealing with, and that is, like, what career did you have before you started adventuring and doing quests? There must be a reason why you decided that what you were doing before wasn't for you. So you might have had a bit of dissatisfaction with what you were pursuing, right? Now we can all associate that in our own real lives. So it would be very easy to understand why that character is thinking that way. But having a good idea of why you decided not to stop doing what you used to do, maybe you haven't. I suppose it is possible that maybe whatever career you had or whatever job you had in the past, you still do, but not as much. And then the majority of the stuff that you're doing is the exploration with your buddies or your friends or whatever, in dungeons and castles, fighting monsters, solving problems with a sword and spells, whatever. So I am trying to get as much of this green on here so that it's a good solid color. I'm using a standard brush, which it's quite old, this one, so it is starting to splay a little bit. But I think you'll find it isn't going to be that difficult to get the green on. The biggest problem is the small necks. I think the small necks are going to be the most problematic and the most time consuming out of everything else. So if you're wondering, which bit is going to be the hardest, I think that's definitely the hardest bit. Okay, next, let's do the back of this. Now you'll notice that if I miss a section, whoops, that's too much water on that. If I miss a section, it doesn't really matter because I've got the darker green underneath and I'm going to wash the whole thing anyway. So you don't have to be terribly perfect with getting your green on. You just want to get the green in basically the right place. So here, what character and what career you had beforehand? What is your most distinguishing feature? Like, what makes you stand out? It doesn't need to be your appearance. It could be a feature that's to do with your personality or how you operate in the world, something like that. I think that's a fairly interesting way to sort of approach things, is like mix it up, find something that makes your character stand out, to make it different from everybody else's. And then I would say the next thing is like, what does your character look like? I think a lot of people, it's good when people want to draw their character, because kids like to draw their characters, right? I think that's a really good thing. Adults are less likely to do that because they feel embarrassed if they can't do a particularly good job. Kids don't care. Like kids do not care if their painting skills and their drawing skills aren't up to par. They will just draw their character and that's it. They're very creative and they're very uninhibited in terms of that sort of stuff, so they'll just do it, which is great. So if you're an adult and you need to come up with what the character looks like just come up with what do they look like in terms of words. It doesn't need to be a picture that you have drawn, and you don't have to go and pay somebody and commission somebody to do it. So yeah. Whoa. Alright, so now this is going to get a little bit tricky because I'm going down the sides now. face. Sides, face. This brush is probably going to be just too big for this job, so I might switch it over to a different one in a second. But we'll get all the bits that I can with this brush, and then I'll move on to a different brush. And then, what do you think is your greatest strength? Like, what is it about your character that they do really well? There'll be something, just like there'll be something that they're not very good at doing, like what is their greatest weakness is also an aspect. And it's good that Dungeons & Dragons 5e has actually built some of that into the character creation under the, the background stuff, where you develop a flaw. But also, like, what is your greatest strength? A lot of people don't think about what is their greatest strength to their character. And I think that actually helps you understand why they're doing what they're doing. Rather than, okay, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm not very good at this sort of thing, so I want to do more of it. That doesn't really make an awful lot of sense. So it is always good to understand there'll be a strength that makes them good at doing this particular type of adventuring sort of stuff, right? There'll be something that makes it all fit together, particularly as they're part of a group. What do you got here, Nicole? It depends on the campaign and the character. For example, a great old one, Warlock, could still have their job, but they have to go to do things for the patron, absolutely, and come up with an excuse for their family. I would agree. Or the adventuring group, every once in a while, during downtime, they might just vanish and have to go and do something that's a little bit icky, maybe, a little bit untoward. Might not even be that at all. What do you got here, Todd? I've had my players create their characters on Hero Forge, and then they just print out the picture. Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea, Todd. Because let's get real, Hero Forge has a very good engine for building what a character looks like, so you could very much do that. So I actually think that's a very smart idea. Nice addition there. Nice addition. So back to talking about character again, since we started on that vein, and I kind of I had, what was I saying? Okay, so now their greatest weakness. Now their greatest weakness is probably not necessarily going to be related to adventuring specifically. It could be related to just one aspect of interacting with other people or other creatures, or it may be the very reason why they had to choose between doing what they did in the past, whatever their career used to be, and what they do now. And they've made a change. Okay, so yeah, or it might be a weakness that they have to keep dealing with constantly every single day, which certainly makes an opportunity to actually expand everything on your character. Okay, so drink of water. All right. It's quiet today in the room. Okay, so let's keep going, and I'm going to put some down the side, and then we are ready to do the front of this miniature. I'm using a small layer brush, by the way, so this brush is much smaller than the last one. So next thing, let's talk about what do you want to achieve during your adventuring life. I think a lot of the time players don't think about there must be something that their character wants to achieve specifically. Now, it can't necessarily be something that is only revolving around their character and something the Dungeon Master has to build in for them, because it is actually much smarter for players to come up with something that is related to the overall campaign. If your Dungeon Master gives you enough information, which hopefully they have, you can build a thing that you want to achieve that is related to the campaign itself, rather than some random thing that your Dungeon Master has got to try to, link up in some way. That is making it way too hard. So I would always suggest, when you start thinking about what your character wants to achieve, you think in terms of, what is it that I want to achieve that is related to the campaign as such, One of the things that I think is really good is Horde of the Dragon Queen had in the back a list of different sort of quests that were all related to the adventure itself, and players could select one, or they received them randomly. Random's good sometimes. Sometimes not, having to play out whatever is just handed to you can work. I found that ultimately most people are quite happy with whatever they get randomly because it was probably better than what they came up with. So, and there's a few adventures that Wizards of the Coast has done that with, and I hope that they do more of that. They don't always do, but sometimes they do. What's that, Gibby? While a celestial warlock nearby got approached by their patron to join their cause because of their strength of character, and that could play into the greatest strength, absolutely. Alright, so I'm just going to move that out of the way because this is getting actually more complicated than I thought it would be. And I want to get this brushwork done fairly quickly if I can. So yes, when you're trying to figure out what you want to achieve with your character, work with your Dungeon Master and come up with something that is tied to the campaign that is being run, rather than coming up with something that you specifically then have to have the Dungeon Master try to figure out how to connect all the dots. This is why Session Zeros are so important, and why it's important to build characters for campaigns rather than the other way around. Often, it's not like everybody runs an episodic campaign where all the characters have their own running story that the Dungeon Master has to keep up with, like a TV series. Where like each week there might be a main character who gets the whole thing's about, but everybody's going to get some limelight at some point. Now, I've run those sorts of campaigns before. Nothing wrong with that sort of campaign. No, there is nothing wrong with that sort of campaign, but they're very hard to run. They're actually significantly harder than a lot of people realize. So given that it's so difficult to do, I wouldn't expect Dungeon Masters to do it unless they want to, because it is asking an enormous amount of somebody to try to make that come off and work. This is really fiddly, this little bit here, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Next, my next head. Getting underneath the mouth of the snake heads is probably the hardest thing I've found on this miniature so far. Like getting to that area, it's almost off limits in terms of access. Okay, so what you want to achieve, and then how did you acquire the skills and training to be the adventurer or the hero that you are now? Like there must have been a training process. We do not want a situation where you're like Ray, or is it a Mary Sue character or a Marty Short character, where they seem to just suddenly be good at everything straight off the bat, and there's no sort of development. So you want to have some idea, and you do not have to necessarily figure this out straight away. Like, where did you get your training? And a lot of your training isn't necessarily just going to be in a training hall. Remember, adventuring is also training. A lot of people sort of forget this. Like, experience in the activity is training, but there must have been some sort of training that took place before that. Or is your character completely untrained and having to learn the hard way all the way through? Like, is that what you're going to role play now? So have a think about that. And I think this is one area, where were you trained, that can take place at the beginning of before the session, at the very beginning of the session, and continue on throughout the session. I don't think there's one spot or place where it's going to be a commonplace occurrence. Darn. Man, that brush just getting it in there is so difficult. I got it though. Made it happen. Okay, next question. I'll just move this dice out of the way. How do you want people to remember you after you die, or after your death? Now, I know a lot of you are like, oh, I don't really want my character to die, but look, it's Dungeons and Dragons. Characters die. Characters come to an end. Sometimes they retire, sometimes they don't. But I think it's something you need to ask yourself. Like, you know, I need to be prepared that my character might die or will die. And often it's like how it will die. Now, whether you die permanently or not, that's like beside the point. But some sort of thought about what happens when my character dies. Like, how will they, what are they thinking? Are they afraid of death? Because I don't think that, if you think about it, I don't think adventurers are really that afraid of death considering what they're taking part in. It's like saying to the NASA program, all the astronauts that go up in space, who are doing some of the most dangerous things that anybody could ever do, in an environment designed to kill them as quickly as possible, is like they're afraid. I'm sure there are things they are afraid of happening, but to a large degree, I think that they have accepted a lot of that. Like, that's part of the risk. And so they will probably have already made plans, right? Just like the astronauts, pretty much already made plans. They've probably got life insurance, if they can get it, I imagine. I imagine that you'd have to have some sort of life insurance on you because, you know, it is an extremely risky endeavor going into space. So I kind of look at Dungeons and Dragons adventuring and role-play hero adventurers a little bit like astronauts. Like, astronauts are like heroes, right? They are up for it completely, which means that what a lot of us would find terrifying, for them is just a normal part of the process. So, oh, this is going to be really difficult underneath here. I can see that now. So when you look at your character and you think, okay, I'm going to build my character a particular way, like, are you building a hero? Because I can't imagine that anybody, unless you have some pretty big balls, is going to go doing the sorts of things that characters do in a Dungeons and Dragons adventure. Like, why would they even consider doing that sort of stuff? So you'd have to be pretty good at keeping yourself together, because it's very much a choice. You think about the people who study volcanoes. There aren't that many who survive it. The perishing rate is quite high. They are absolutely fascinated by volcanoes, and they don't mind getting up close. They want to get up close. They deliberately do so as part of the study of the volcano. But they must have been able to get over that in some way. And so when you're building your character, think about a character who is... I always find it amusing when people want to build a character who's a coward or a pacifist, where, you know, it just doesn't make sense that that type of character would even exist in the activity that's taking place. I'm sure it's very different, and I'm sure some people can make it work. But frankly, I don't understand how you would actually consider that a viable way of operating. You don't get people doing that sort of thing unless they absolutely want to. So, all right. So this green is proving to be quite time-consuming, but it is also one of the major aspects of it. And then I've got to go up the front. The good news is that I've got a bit of time, so that's always nice. And the base is mostly done, so that's going to take me almost no time whatsoever. And the next color over the green is, I've only got one color after that. It is more the belly that's going to be my biggest problem, because that is very much a specific color. So that might prove to be a bit tricky. Bearing in mind it's going to get washed, so if you miss a section, I'm not going to worry. It is all going to come out in the wash. I am very eager to use this miniature too, by the way. Okay, so that's that. I need a drink of water. Are we getting some people voting today? All right, okay, so we've got a few votes now. So before and during the game seems to be the most votes. Before the game session seems to be 33%. Okay, nobody has selected any of the others. Okay, that's cool. Yellow, yeah, actually, if you wanted to know exactly what, so M14, I'm using a ruby skin. Before I used a skeleton bone for the front of it. Okay, these are all Nolzur's Marvelous Pigments. I'm going to use the ruby skin. Now, it's not full yellow, okay? This is the full yellow. The problem with yellow when you put it onto any kind of miniature is sometimes it takes anywhere from 4 to 6 layers of paint because it's such an awful color to deal with, which is why I'm using a gradient, and I'm going to be doing most of this with a smaller brush, not the tiny brush, but a standard brush to control it all. And it doesn't need to all go on in such a way that it covers the entire surface. So I'm kind of dry brushing with a standard brush, which is not, it's more like placing paint. Hello, Wally, how's it going? Yep, you voted during and before. I bet you did. Hey, Wally, I know I need to get back to you about the Dungeon Master Roundtable. For those of you who don't know Wally DM, yes, this is Wally DM. He's the one who does puzzles. You should go and check out his channel. You should definitely go and check out his book. He has lots of stuff on puzzles. I was telling everybody yesterday, Wally, I've decided I'm going to do a full review of your book, which probably means that live stream followed by an edited version, and I'm probably going to show them everything in the book. You'll tell me now, by all means, if that's a bad thing. But I always kind of feel like people need to see the whole thing, so that's how I'm going to rock. Nicole, what do you got here? How do you run your Session 0 thread? Do you ask your players what kind of campaign they want to play in, or do you have an idea before getting the players, and then you tell them what it is? Okay, fair enough, absolutely. No, I'm not going to use a glaze. I'm going to use a wash. But this is this ruby skin color. So your question. So this, I'll tell you what I actually did. What I decided to do is I thought, well, I have a couple of ideas for the last campaign I ran. I know what I would like to run, and so I presented those ideas in terms of stories or ideas of things that I would be prepared to do. And then once I did that, I then took a number of those ideas to them, and they told me what they liked, what they didn't like, and then they added a little bit more to it. Okay, so I said to them, I want to run Dragon of Ice by Peak because I know a lot of people want to know a bit more about that adventure, and I don't want to talk about it unless I've run it. And they said, okay, that's fine. I explained to them basically the gist behind it, that it was about dealing with a dragon that was terrorizing an area, and they said, no, that's fine, that's good. I explained where it was. They weren't very fond of going back to Firenewt, back to the Sword Coast or the Forgotten Realms, but we did it. Oh, what's that, Wally? Sounds good, Fred. Thank you. You're welcome. Yeah, so I have to spend quite a bit of time under a tree at the beach, working extremely hard, looking at your book and breaking down everything, which you already know what I think of your book. I'm just going to be a bit more detailed about the whole thing. And then, yeah, showing everybody the book later on, that'll probably take me a bit longer, but it'll just have the voiceover for what I discuss. Right, that's now, so you can see what I'm doing, and it is, I'm leaving the lower area unpainted, so I'm just brushing very quickly over this, so it's not going to cover the entire thing perfectly. Does that make sense? So there's a reason why I wasn't worried about getting this done fast, because I knew that the next layer of paint was not going to be significantly difficult to deal with. So where was I? I was going, what's the play 20 questions and work from the work from then see where it goes. Yeah, fair enough. You could play 20 questions, absolutely, and then go from there, absolutely. So I did that, and then I also said, look, after Dragon of Ice by a Peak, I am thinking Dungeon of the Mad Mage, going into Undermountain. And they said, oh, okay, that sounds all right. I haven't done that before. Nobody had really been to Undermountain, so they were open to the idea. I said it was much more of a dungeon crawl, and it would be dealing with a mad mage, and I explained, you know, Halaster Blackcloak, because a lot of them already knew that Halaster Blackcloak was part of Undermountain. I said, yes, you're probably going to interact with him from the very get-go, and they said, no, that sounds fine. And then we had a discussion about how long that would all take, and I said, well, look, it can go to level 20, from level 1 to level 20. And they said, Fred, we don't really want that. They said, we're happy to go from level 1 to 10. And I said, okay, that's fine. That's what we'll do. We wound up going from level 1 to level 15 in the end. Because once we got to level 10, they were like, no, we're actually happy to keep going, so let's keep going. So that's what we did. So that is the process for sort of determining what I do. Now, there were a couple of other things that they discussed that they really were interested in. And some of them, there was one in particular who really wanted to play a pirate campaign. But I was not prepared to do that. But we did have a pirate adventure in the whole thing. And the person who was most keen on a pirate-themed ship-based adventure is now the Dungeon Master running that very adventure or type of campaign now. So Simon really wanted to do that, and so he is now running it. And it made... So for him, what I wanted to do was not really his thing, but what he wanted to do was not really my thing. So the compromise is I run what I want to do, and then Simon runs what he wants to do. And although he didn't get to play in it, I did give him one adventure that was very pirate-themed, and a lot of them did retire as pirates, as it happens, in my campaign. They also wound up being sort of the lords and masters of Phandalin, but that can happen if they get strong enough. So you can see what's happening with the front of this this creature. Now there was another thing too. I did talk to them, and they said, look, we want to get out of the Forgotten Realms. So I wound up running a lot of stuff that had them away from, once they got to about level 6, doing a bit of, we did a bit of planar travel. There was a little bit of that taking place where they would go to different places around the multiverse. And they visited various worlds during that campaign. I believe we went to the Pathfinder world. We went to a couple of worlds they didn't realize what they were because I didn't let them know. But we went to a lot of different places. We even went to some different planes of existence, including one that I just made up. So that sort of started to take place at about level 10. So once we got to about level 11, it was traveling the multiverse was a very common thing, or having to protect their home from encroachment from the multiverse. So that would happen quite a lot too in my campaign. And you can do very much the same thing if you really wanted to in your own campaigns. Because as you may have noticed, I really do think that once you get to level 10, you're really looking at multiverse travel, rather than just staying in the same old place, being vagabonds who wander around, either stealing people's stuff and killing monsters or doing good deeds. It's a totally different game. So I made sure that that's the type of game we played. Okay, Pale Rider. Fred, what setting do you usually play in? Homebrew? Forgotten Realms, because most people know it. There was a point where I was using homebrew for everything, and the homebrew that I was using would change every time I ran a new game. And literally the homebrew, I've talked about this before I think, was created by my players. I would just get a continent map. Sometimes I'd name it, sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes I'd just get them to name it. And then I would have a starting location like a village, and they would just go from there. Anywhere and everywhere. And every new location I would just add to the continent map. And I could just mix and match as I saw fit. So the world would be built as we went. I can also combine different worlds and campaign settings doing that as well. All right, so let's get rid of. Look, we got another bot. So I am the Terminator of bots. I report you, and you are not useful to me, and you are gone. Gonskis. Man, I'm having way too much fun terminating bots today. Okay, so working our way through the questions that I'm being presented with. Are New Zealand beaches clean? My entire life, all beaches I've been to always had garbage for days on them. Yeah, they are actually. There are rangers who make sure they are clean. There are restrictions on what you can do at a beach. Some beaches are cleaner than others, but I think you won't really find a lot of garbage and rubbish on them. There's another aspect to this that you've got to understand, is because people who live near beaches is not as like a batch, but they actually live there. They walk on the beach like every day. It doesn't even matter if it's a fine day or not. They'll be out there and it'll be pouring rain sometimes, wind and so forth. And they deliberately go along the beaches, sometimes with a rubbish bag for their dogs to collect any poo, so they don't leave the poo behind. But they will pick up rubbish. So that's often what will take place. Not necessarily people who go and visit the beach, but people who live there take it very personal when you drop stuff, and so they will pick that stuff up, and they will certainly give you a hard time if you were to drop rubbish. Okay, that's worked out really well. That colour has worked out significantly better than I thought. So now I'm going to move on to the next step. I would love to play in your homebrew games, Fred. There's a few people who have asked me. It's probably not going to happen. Nothing personal. It's just, yeah, it's just not going to happen. All right. So I think the next step is I'm going to do this green. So we went with the Feywild Emerald, and now I'm going to use this Grung green, which means I'm going to have to kind of dry brush it on. And I'm probably going to try to do that fairly quickly. So where is the brush that I was going to use for that? I put it somewhere there. Yeah. So I'm going to dry brush this green onto it. Where's my towel? And then I'm going to switch over to a standard size brush to do the rest of it. I don't want to do it with the tiny brush to start with because it'll just be too hard. So I'm going to kind of just dry brush. Oh, come on you. Thread the needle. There, got it. Cool. Just to make it a little bit easier. So now what am I doing? I actually want the paint to dry up, so that's fine if I don't put it on the wet section. So we'll put it here. I'll put out just a little bit to start with, and we'll see how this works out. Grung green is much lighter, so it should hopefully do all the highlights along these scales. And I'm using a very scummy brush. I'll just brush off, and we'll see how that works along the top. There's so many scales, so I think the problem is going to be that I won't be using enough paint to pick up all the texture. So I might actually have to use more green. Yeah, just because of the little fine details. I think, you know, there's that point where there's so much detail on a miniature that it's actually hard to pick up the details on the miniature because the paint has got to hit so many different surfaces. And I think this is what this is going to wind up being like. Is unless I use more paint, it just won't show up. No, it is not. It just really isn't working. Okay, so what am I going to do with this? Since that's not working, brushing off maybe not the idea. Maybe it's just getting too hot in here. That might be the answer. Let's grab some water again. I'll go to my dry brush. Maybe the dry brush will make the difference. Maybe I can get the green to come out a bit more. using that. Let's brush off a little bit. So I'm definitely going to have to put more paint on to make the it stand out. I'm just got to be careful about how I do this. A fine line between too much and not enough. To try to get all the little detailed bits to show up. And along the side, along the side, along the side. And hopefully the wash will even it all out later. Not guaranteed, but that is my hope. There's the wash will do all the evening out later. So yeah, that's sort of how I deal with it. And look, most of my campaigns don't necessarily have a strong planned out aspect to them. They have room for adjustment along the way. I've got a basic idea of what I think I'm going to do and what the major threat is, and then that can change because sometimes the major threat gets killed. It does happen, right? So I do plan for the fact that I might have to adjust things, and I might have to pick up the best thing you can do with any kind of villain if you're going to present them early is to make sure that you have a new villain to take their place if need be. And they might have a totally different focus, or they might have the same sort of focus. But yeah, having a backup villain is always a very good idea. Man, you can see there's so much detail on the snake's tail. This Yuan-Ti tail is like super detailed. Right, so I'll need some more of that paint to make this work. Hello, Camille. How's it going? What's that, Gabby? On a scale of 0 to 20, how much do you hate Kia birds? Oh, I know what you're talking about. Look, nobody really likes the Kia bird. It's fine if it's on paper and in a picture, but to actually experience what a Kia bird is like in New Zealand, they just destroy everything. They get up to so much mischief. They're like the naughtiest birds you can imagine. And they are destructo birds. They really are. They get into everything. And surprisingly, their beaks are incredibly powerful. So I would say they're definitely a 1 in terms of annoying. Is 1 being the most annoying or 20 being the most annoying? I think they're right up there. There are a lot of people who would like to just kill those things. That's how problematic they can be. There are warning signs for these birds in certain areas of New Zealand. Like you are warned about these birds coming and doing things to your car or your house. And I have no doubt that there are more than a few people who on the side take those birds out because they are so destructive. It's like they are it's like nature has decided to unleash them on man to just show them how much nature doesn't like what humans do to the world. It really does feel like that sometimes. So, yeah. Yeah, 20 is definitely the most annoying. Yeah, they're definitely there. Yeah, how's it going, Camille? It's looking good? Good. If we're looking good, that's good news. I've just been saying that I'm actually having to put more paint on because of all the details to get it to actually come out. Otherwise, the scales don't show up. Which is kind of weird, right? But in this case, it is. It's going to wind up looking a lot lighter, which is fine with me. I'm actually quite happy that it is going to look lighter rather than a very dark color. And I'm not looking for a hugely realistic effect on this, so that's fine too. All right, so we're doing all right. I think my biggest issue is going to be around the neck, the heads. That's going to be probably the biggest issue I have with this particular miniature. Yeah, so yeah, Kias are just unbelievably destructive. Oops, that's too much. And I know it sounds terrible to say that, but they just are. One of the good things about those birds is that they do keep a lot of other creatures away. You know, you don't really want to mess with these birds. They're crazy. Those things are. They really are. They're absolutely mad. So things like, if we have stoats that have been imported to New Zealand, stoats and the kea, mate, I'd bet on the kea. That stoat does not have a chance, because the problem is if the stoat takes out even one of the eggs, the kea will hunt down the stoat, find its family, and take out the family as well, not just the stoat itself. So losing its eggs is not an option. Anyway, that's all I will say about those things. They are very vengeful little suckers, those. Anyway. Okay, so this is actually turning out significantly better than I had hoped it would, which is good news, because I know that before it was kind of looking a little bit bland, but this is actually working out really well, which is good news. I'm going to go light across here along the arm. I'm not going to do the underneath of the arm, just the top section of it. Or will I do the underneath of the hand? The hand, maybe. Yeah, maybe the hand. Underneath of the hand, but not the actual arm itself. I think we'll leave that dark, so that we just got the light on the top section of it, and the back there, top section. Now, if I just make sure I got it lined up, and then lined up. Yep, that's good. All right, so just the fronts of the heads with this paint. We'll get them, and that should hopefully bring out some of the details on the head of the snakes. Not a lot, but a little bit. In terms of the head's detail, it's not necessarily particularly clean detail on these heads. If you haven't noticed already, a lot of the heads aren't, it's just so small. That's, I think, the problem. Because the miniatures got such tiny little heads on them, it's a little bit hard for them to sort of stand out. Okay. So that is pretty close. We'll do a little bit more on that, and then I think that we're close to dealing with the green side, and then I'm going to finish off the yellow, and then it's all hard yakka on the heads, just to finish them up. What's this? Festolan Greyhawk. How's it going? You're painting all the monsters I brought recently and painted. Okay, laughing your ass off. Well, that's good. Okay, I haven't got into painting for years. Most of my stock is original lead heads. Yes, made of lead and pewter. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I've got those types of miniatures. I've already painted all of those. This is back when you only had Humbrol paints. Like, Humbrol paints are awful to paint with. The paint moves because it's so thick. It's hard to work with, even with a small brush. I think the development of acrylic paints for miniatures is incredibly useful. It's wonderful. Because I can't count the number of times I used to get so frustrated when I was painting with those Humbrol paints, because that's really all there was, and you could never get anything to come out the way you wanted it to come out. Like, seriously, it just does not work. So now that we have them, happy as Larry. Okay, that's it. We'll clean off the dry brush. I am actually, before I start tackling the front section of it, which is probably going to take me a little bit of time, but not that much time, I'm going to do the base. It's looking great, thank you. Now, for those of you who are worried that maybe this has become way too light, once I put a dark wash on it, it's going to get lighter. So even those highlights that seem to sort of be making it look a bit too light in some places, it won't matter. it'll change a lot of it's look. It will get darker. A lot of those colours will get a lot darker. I know a lot of people do their highlighting after a wash, and you can, but I kind of want my colours to be a little bit muted. So yeah, I don't really want it to look too miniature. Now, is that Joe? Joe Farah. Is it Joe Farah? Yeah, it is a really interesting miniature. It's one of the reasons why I grabbed it, because it looked so different. So now where am I? I've done that colour, I've done that colour. I'm going to use this grey here. This is a Vallejo paint. This is medium sea grey. Okay. And I'll use that little pot there. Give it a shake. Would be interested in watching you paint a metal model with oil paints? Ha ha ha. Yeah. Thanks, M14. That ain't gonna happen. No way am I going back to metal. I've done that. I've done plenty of them. They're hard. They just don't survive too. That's half the problem. Even if you coat them with something, they just don't survive. Pardon me. So I'm doing the base. This is probably the last light color. This is slightly lighter than the orc skin grey that I put on. Not by much, just a fraction. So that will be my final highlight. So let's just see if that works, and be fairly quick about it. Not that I'm expecting to get everything. It doesn't need to. That's not the intention at all. It's just to help things pop out a little bit. Okay, and we'll do that again. That's working fine. The brush I'm using is just a shitey Emporium brush, like from a Chinese Emporium, cheap and nasty. Okay, I'm not using a fancy Citadel brush for this section at all. I'm just going over with something that I think will be suitable. And yeah, that's helping. That's certainly helping to bring out the details. Not good. It worked out well. Portuguese. Now, Joe. So it means John. Pardon me, my voice is starting to crack. John Faria. Look, if I got that wrong, I do apologise. I'm struggling as it is. I'm starting to lose my voice as it is. Looks okay, matey. John is fine. Okay, John is good. Okay, good. Love your content, by the way, and would love a video on your thoughts about insight checks. Yeah, nobody really talks about insight checks. I think a lot of people fail to even use insight checks a lot of the time. I always do not encourage people to do insight checks, but I get where you're coming from. Now, the reason being is I always leave that in the kettle, in the hands of my players. They tell me if they like, I want to find out this sort of information from an NPC while I'm talking to them. And they say, does that mean I get to make an insight check? And I'll say, okay, yep, you can do that. But the truth of the matter is, when they're making an insight check, I'm actually basing most of what I tell them based on their first reaction to the NPC and what they suspect as a player rather than a character. I'm using their initial reaction as a player, not as a character, to what they heard the NPC say. So if they don't trust the NPC before they make the insight check as a player, then that's what I'm going to reinforce. And if I find that they are, they kind of are on the fence and unsure, then that's how I will present their character's response. Now, there's another thing that goes on here that a lot of people probably sort of forget with insight checks, and that is, I don't tell people that they necessarily know that they're lying or that they're telling the truth. I describe what's going on with their body language. So how their eyes are moving. You know, are they looking down? I'll say their eyes are moving and shifty, moving down. You can see them sweating a little bit, and that tells them some information. And then based on what they understand about body language, they then, as a player, transfer that information over to their character. Right, there is the base done. Look, we are actually not that far away from a finished miniature. It is actually not that far. I thought we wouldn't get there, but we're actually doing all right. So, John, hopefully that gives you some sort of idea. I don't know if necessarily I want to do any more rules, heavy rules videos, although I'm going to come back to the tools videos eventually, but just probably not for a little while. I plan to do all of them, but sometimes I find a series doesn't pick up, and so I let it have a bit of time to stew and fester. And once it stews and festers enough, and I think there's enough interest in it, then I'll continue with the next one. So a lot of the series that I make, sometimes they look like I stopped making them, but I'm actually haven't. I'm just waiting for them to actually develop a bit, so that there is a following behind them. And when you've got people who are definitely interested. So sorry, this color here is the yellow that I'm going to use. Very cool advice, Fred. You're welcome, Nicole. Gabby. This is Firenewt orange, which looks like yellow. This is why I've picked it, because it looks like yellow. It is also incredibly thin, making it utterly useless to you as a paint for really using for anything. It is Nolzur's Marvelous Pigments, yes, but it's an army painter paint. So this paint is probably one of the poorer ones. Wait, no brewer's kit. Wally, for you, I will make an exception. I will do the brewer's kit, because I know that it either had to be that or the woodcarver's tools, and we had this discussion. The brewer's kit is going to happen. I will do the brewer's kit. Who doesn't want to talk about alcohol? Okay, so where are we? Where are we? I already got it. True. These plastic ones hold the paint longer too. Yeah, and I agree. And they're easier to get the paint onto them. Have you ever used Aswags, corpses, gatherers? No. Smoke giants? No, I've never used a smoke giant. Filipino folklore monsters in your games? No, I haven't really. To be fair, that's more the realm of HowtoDandD. And for John, just to give you an idea, HowtoDandD is Portuguese. And I think it wasn't that long ago we did a video and somebody decided to say that he was a white person like myself, descendants from Europe, very, very white. You know, Josiah doesn't actually look that white, which is really funny. And he's also Portuguese. And I didn't want to say anything when I saw that comment pop up. But yeah, he's Portuguese, but he doesn't speak Portuguese, we discovered, which was interesting. It was not something I was expecting at all. Yeah, Portuguese. Now, so he has probably introduced me to more unusual monsters than anybody else that I can think of. And continues to do so. I was really happy to see a monster that he did not so long ago, and he got about 3,000 views on it, which is quite high in such a small space of time on his channel. To actually see so many people who were interested in that monster and that watched it. Now maybe it was because of the way he titled it. That could be part of the reason. But it was good, because he does really good videos, and he actually goes to the effort to actually make a 5th edition stat block if it doesn't have one. Although sometimes he makes a 5th edition stat block even when it does have one, which is very, very unusual that it would, but sometimes it does. He still makes his own, and they are available. You can get them for free, or you can get the really nice looking one on his Patreon. Okay, So yeah, no, I haven't used a lot of the I think it was what was it? There's a book that has a lot of them in there. The Creature Codex by Kobold Press has a lot of creatures from different nationalities. They haven't really created their own stuff. They've just taken what exists in other folklores around the world. Filipino, Chinese, Japan, where else was there? Norwegian. Yeah. So, which is awesome. I thought it was a really good idea. It's probably the only way they're going to be able to keep making monster books and have new stuff in it. Let's get real. Kobold Press has got monster books coming out their ears compared to Wizards of the Coast. Wizards of the Coast has just not got their act together. They keep trying to make something for dungeon masters and players when really, look, you could have a book with a whole lot of playable races in them and then monsters. And yet, how many playable races do you need to have before the players to actually buy that book? I'll tell you what, stop worrying about the playable races, because people still want the beasts for mounts, and if they're playing a druid, or familiars, or for summoning stuff. And beasts are a big part of that. So players do buy monster manuals, particularly if the monsters they can use with some of the features and powers they have. So why not let them have them? Why not just make a proper monster manual? Hi Seb, how's it going? Ah, boy. John, it was good advice. Solid. Thank you. You're welcome. It's quite a paradigm. A paradigm. I find it always on the back foot with insight checks. But what you said about describing the body language is actually very smart. Yeah, this is what they would actually see as a character, right? They're not going to necessarily know all the other stuff. They have to come to that conclusion themselves. Now, the player's doing that, not the character, because the character doesn't do anything unless the player decides to have it do something. So it is the piece of information that you give. That's what I find is probably the best way. It leaves it open for players to come to the wrong conclusion with their character, which is always fun too. It also means that players can use their meta-knowledge and understanding of body language in a way that they couldn't before. So yes, probably one of the better ways I've found of dealing with it. As a DM of 30 years, I always look for new monsters. Yet new monsters are what make the world go round, right? Dungeons and Dragons is about the stories that you have with player characters and monsters. It doesn't matter whether they're fighting them or doing something else. That's the story. That's what I always felt. That's what always drove me. And that's sort of how I approach the game. So you have to have new monsters all the time. You can't just keep having the same ones. Indeed. I felt like perhaps been away from the Holy Land for many years. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. I kind of lost that part of the conversation. Sorry about that. Okay. Heck, I would buy those books first for lore, art, and ideas for characters. Look, even the mechanics for the Kobold monster books is probably better than what Wizards of the Coast does, frankly. They're far more interesting, certainly a lot more dangerous, but they actually do stuff. They're not really just bags of hit points, which a lot of the monsters in that Wizards of the Coast are putting out tend to wind up being. As they just tend to wind up being a whole bunch of things that have hit points and really, even when they have a cool ability, they never come off because the DCs for them are so low. Like, you need to crank up the DCs on those monsters for them to ever be able to do anything. So, yeah. I'm not really a fan of a lot of the monsters. This is why I keep changing everything. Right, so that is the yellow. And I think that is really sort of making that rock a bit now. Really getting into it. I need to have a drink of water before I continue. I'm going to the beach after this, by the way, so I won't be here forever. I will be back tomorrow at the same time. Now, I've done that. We're now dealing with the heads. I'm going to deal with the snake heads. And how was I going to do this? I think I was going to use orange for not so much the tongues, but around the tongues. I don't know that that's going to work, though. No, I'm going to use it as a highlight. That's right. I'm going to see if I can bring out around the mouth some of the details with this colour, which means I'm going to have to do something very horrible to my poor standard brush, which is getting old, and that is use it like a dry brush, which you shouldn't do, which I have been doing quite a lot recently, if you haven't noticed. Yeah, D&D is only limited by your imagination. Animals, neighbours, enemies for your character's homeland. Absolutely. Yep. D&D is it's not just a game, it's an adventure. Exactly. That's the one. It's an adventure. Right, let's just see if this works. I am trying. Frankly, I'm not convinced that I can do this successfully. Because I've got to get the paint in just one location, which is inside the mouth. And it's a small space already. It's not really working that great there. I remember the first time I faced a Hydra in a Dungeons and Dragons game. I was playing a paladin and I got surprised by it. We were playing Dungeons and Dragons 3.5 and guess what? I got surprised. I didn't get to act. It acted and I was the only one in the front when I was near the pool that it came out of. It attacked me multiple times and killed my character before I even had a chance to do anything. That was the biggest surprise I've ever had, fighting or dealing with a monster. And its only interest was to destroy everything. The good thing is that I did my job. It focused on me while everybody else was able to unleash a hail of magical damage and arrows to kill the thing before it disappeared into the water with my body torn to pieces. It did so much damage apparently. It took me my body and just ripped it to shreds. Can I just say that I was extremely unhappy about that situation, but I also saw the funny side of it later on. When the Dungeon Master was sitting down, he said, I feel really bad that happened to your character. Do you want me to I'll find a way and we'll just bring it back. And I said, no, it's all right. I wasn't very happy initially, but I've gotten over it now. It's fine. You can kill my character that way. I don't want to bring the character back. It's dead. And he said, but you just spent a whole lot of time building it. And I was like, it's all right. I'll make another one. I'm not saying that people should, that's how their attitude and how they should think about the game. But it was just so funny that's what happened in that given situation. Who would have guessed that it would have happened that quickly and be that brutal? Yeah. Anyway, so I'm using white. This is Vallejo white, which keeps getting chunks stuck in it. So I'm using a very small, fine brush. I'm going to try and do the eyes. There's quite a few eyes to do. If I get really quiet, I do apologise. Have a good evening, folks, fellows. Yep, bed is calling. Fair enough, go to bed. Was even looking at, Was not even looking at the screen no more. Just eyes closed and listening, enjoying the beach. Yeah, I will enjoy the beach. I do have a Hydra to paint, by the way. Oh, good. That'll be fun. Two zombies are eating a clown. One turns to the other and says, "This tastes funny to you?" No, you're right. Yeah. Okay, so eyes. I'm going to move this out of the way because it's not going to work for me. Oh. This is going to be too hard to do with a brush. I can see it now. I can just see it now. I'm not going to do it with a brush. I'm going to ditch the brush. I'm going to use a toothpick. I know that sounds weird, but I don't think I can go with anything but just a white dot. I think it's going to be too hard to do anything else. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not really happy with this. This is proving to be difficult. Do I go back to the brush? I'll go back to the brush and see if the brush was better. I don't really... Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to be... This is going to be my weakest aspect of the miniature, is getting the eyes in. Oh well, had to be something that I would struggle with, and that's the one. You're lucky, mate. I don't think I could do that unless it's a main antagonist. I simp for the Bahamut or... Oh, right, fair enough. Tiny eyes on that. Yeah, the eyes are so small. They really are just minuscule. Ugh. Oh, I'm not going to be happy with this. This is way hard. I need my brother's hands for this sort of thing. I definitely need my brother's hand for this sort of thing. Yeah, look, I have used toothpicks before. Yeah, I don't know that I just don't know that I'm gonna torture myself that much. The eye size is so... Oh, I ballsed it up really badly there. Look, I don't know if you saw what I just happened there, but that was really, really bad. Like the white went everywhere. So now I've got to touch up with green, grab a bit of the lighter green and use that to sort of fix that little section there, because the eye just went bananas. Can I just say the teeth are even... I think the teeth in some cases are... They stand out a little bit more, but they're still really small too. Oh, I'm getting angry now. Okay, alright. Eyeballs are... Not happy with the eyes. A pin. I don't know if I've got a pin on me. That's the thing. I don't know. I'm going to do the teeth. I'm going to do the teeth. What am I going to use in the teeth? That's right. I'm using this color here. I'm going to use the skeleton bone color for the teeth, because I don't want them to be white. That would just suck. So we're going to go with that color instead. And it's just going to be just the tip of it. I'm hoping that'll work. Skeleton bone for the teeth, which is just the two fangs. I'm not going to try to get too fancy. Oh, pardon me. That was nasty. Got to go. No problems, Wally. I'll see you later. And I'll catch up with you about what we're doing in terms of the next Dungeon Master Roundtable, particularly the one on D&D history and Gary and Dave. Now, where was I? I had put the paint out somewhere. There it is. Brush off, brush on. There's one tooth. There's the second tooth. Sheesh. Talk about just a small amount of paint. Just the tip, yeah, just the tip. And take a bit of paint on, then take a bit of paint off, and then try to hit it. I'm so glad that some of these have not got open mouths. Right, now where are the actual fangs? There. Fang. Fang. Two fangs. Okay, so we've got the fangs on that one sorted. Good. Hi Jasper, how's it going? I am currently trying to paint teeth on these tiny little snake heads. And it's quite hard. Because you're going to get it from the front and then also the side. Front and the side, front and the side. Front. Side. Okay, well at least it's starting to look a little better than it was before anyway. How are we doing with our poll? I'm kind of curious as to what people's opinion are. Oh, so we've got a bit of a spread now. I'm glad that there's people who do have an opinion and nobody put down I don't know, which is awesome. During the game, 31%, 19% before the game, and 50% before and during the game. Character development can be pretty much anywhere for some people, which is like, I'm not gonna tell you. I just have my way of doing it. My group, we tend to do most of it during the game. That's just me, but you don't have to do it that way. Remember, it's about you could do it that way rather than you should do it that way. Let's stick with you could rather than you should. Alright, so that's alright. I feel like those fangs just don't seem to be coming out quite as well. Looking at it at the front. Yes. It's better than I thought it would be. I'm still not happy. To be fair, I'm really not happy with the eyes. I feel like I need to go over them. I feel like I need to do something to fix them. And I don't know exactly how that's going to be. So I'm ditching the brush. The brush isn't going to work for me. I am going to go back to a toothpick. But I do feel like this white thing it's just asking for more trouble. So if I start getting really quiet, it's because I'm concentrating. What's that? Imagine doing all 300 odd in each snake mouth. Oh, I can't imagine. No, I don't want to do all the teeth. They're not like that. Mine looks better than mine. Oh, Fred, yours looks better than mine. I used too dark a color like the box showed. Yeah, no, I realized that when I was doing it, I want it to be a lot brighter, and some of the colors are quite muted in Dungeons and Dragons 5e because they're using watercolors. It's not that I don't like watercolors. I'm fine with that. Is HowtoDandD Portuguese? Yes, he is. Yes, he does. He lives in Nova Scotia, Canada, but he is Portuguese on one side of his family. Right, so I am doing the drop of white for eyes. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, look at it. I'm so angry now. Oh, it's just... it's not too bad. It's not too bad. I suppose it's not, yeah. It's not, yeah, okay, right. Dot on, and then off. I've got to remember to do that. I keep forgetting. This eye is so small. And look at how much paint is going on. This is what I hate about doing eyes. It's like when they do these miniatures, they just don't think about, like, somebody's got to paint this thing. It's all right. Everybody's expert painters and got great hand control, so they'll do it fine. Okay. I hand moved up, so instead of it being kind of where I wanted it to be, it's gone somewhere else. Okay. Right, so we're... Okay, so I've done the white. Now somebody said a pin. The Kia gods have done it again. That's right. Those little snots have messed with things. They've messed with my mind. No, my players won't notice in the slightest. They'll just look at it and like, oh, that's nice. Did you buy that? And I'll say, no, I did actually paint it. So I need another drink of water, and I have a plan before I sign out. My plan, I don't know if it's a cunning plan, but it is my current plan. And that is, I want to tidy up just one part of my snake head because it looks a little... I'm sure the wash will fix a lot of this, and I'm just being too fussy. I'm not recommending that you be as fussy as I am, okay? There's a point where you have to just accept that you've got it as good as you can get it, and I am struggling with that right now. And then I'm just going to go along the edge. Tiny touch up. I feel like it's better, or maybe it could be just my imagination. Honestly, it could just be my imagination. Like I looked at it and like, ah, that looks better. Did I actually put any paint there? Who knows? Place your pinky finger firmly on the table to help steady with the brush. Yeah, I'm not using a brush for my next attempt. My next attempt is like I know that doing that was hard enough, but listen as I rummage around. For a needle. I wouldn't put a needle in there. I'd probably wind up hurting myself if I put a needle there. Where would I put a needle? When was the last time I had to sew up my pants? About 3 months ago. Or was it less? Oh, I think I know where it is. Hang on. Okay, so this is a needle rather than a pin. So in theory, the actual head of it should be smaller. I'm going to try to put a black dot on that white tiny dot with a pin, which it'll either come out better, I think, or worse. I don't know. Now I know snake eyes are supposed to be like the little slit, but there's no way I can do that on an eye that small. I am just not that good. I can talk it, but I couldn't do it. So I'm using Vallejo Black. And It looks to me, since today is Wednesday for me, that means I have got 3 more days to paint another miniature. I haven't decided what it's going to be. Maybe I should get people to let me know what they think it should be before I disappear. So let me do the eye. I'm going to be getting really quiet now while I try to get this right. So bear with me. Paint on, paint off. I've got to keep remembering paint on, paint off. Paint on, paint off. No, it didn't work. Paint on. It's not even doing anything. The tip is so small, there's no paint coming off. Okay, so, right, so don't paint off, just paint on. Paint on. Man, that was small. Paint on. Paint on. Paint on. Paint on. Paint on. Okay. Paint on. Paint on. Paint on. Okay. Paint on. Paint on. Paint on. Okay. Paint on. Right, turn it over. Paint on. Paint on. Paint on. Oh, that angle's shit. Did I even get it? Did I miss it completely? Did I even hit it? Oh, there's no paint there. Let's do it again. It's drying on the pin. Didn't work. Bam. Come on. Why is it not working? It's not working. I don't know what's going on here. Maybe the paint is drying too much. Yeah, there's a lot of eyes. It's not even remotely funny how many eyes there are to deal with. Let's try that again. I was doing all rightish till about that point. Okay, paint on. Bugger. What the heck? What's going on here? I'm struggling these last 2 eyes. For some reason, it's just not working. Seriously? Okay. Okay, I got it. It was a bit rough on the inside there. I wouldn't say that it's the greatest job I've ever done with an eyeball, but I think I got it. Oh my gosh. So the problem with a pin is the amount of paint on the very tip of it. It tends to pull further up, not on the tip. And so when you try to put the paint on, it doesn't quite work. And so unless the paint is actually dripping slightly off the tip of it, I have got eyeballs on my little monster now. And not too bad, I think, considering white and black. Not perfect. I've got my teeth coloured. They're standing out now, so it's going to be able to bite somebody. I've done all my highlights. How is that? That was stressful. Painting is not supposed to be stressful, but I'll tell you, painting eyes is extremely stressful. Was the hardest part of the part for me. So yeah, those eyes, they're just so small. Okay, so let me do a spin so you can see everything, and then I'll show you what I have had in mind for painting tomorrow. Now you might not be able to see everything clearly because we're dealing with a black background because of my pad. So that is the head area. That's what's going on with that. I'll give that as sort of a spin for you. You can see that I've used 3 different colors for the green body, 3 different colors for the front section, finishing with a yellow. I've used 3 different colors for the base, which is currently gray. So how do I show you? Is it that way? This way. That gray in there is actually, that's 3 different colors. I've used 3 colors for the inside of the mouth, and I've used white and then black for the eyes, and then I've used 1 sort of skeleton bony color for the teeth to help them stand out. And we now have a completed miniature. So now that's done, I am going to what's this? I was really wondering how bad are beholders for you. So I've done a lot of beholders. So hang on, let me just grab what I've got. So I've got a few here that I'm going to show you. You're in the chat, you're going to tell me which ones you like, which ones you don't like. Actually, no, I will probably even just put up a poll tonight. I'll ask people what I should paint. No, do I want to do that? I'm not even sure I want to do that. I'm going to show you. So I've got this egghead, which is basically a giant insect. I think it's going to be a bit of a pain to paint because there's so many areas to try to get at. So it's not going to be hugely fun to paint. I think it's going to be more of a hassle. Yeah, beholder eyes are a lot bigger. You're right. So yeah, I think I'll find them a lot easier to pick out. They are like ping pong balls, exactly. So they're easier to get at. So there's the egghead, which I could do. If you've seen that, big insect creature, or I've got a Venom Troll, which, frankly, I would say this Venom Troll is really interesting for me. I think a Venom Troll is super interesting. I don't know that it necessarily will take me 3 days to paint, and probably more like 2 days to get it all done, considering there's a few different details there. So the Venom Troll is an option. I have this, which is an ogre zombie. I actually think the ogre zombie is quite a cool miniature, but I've already got one ogre zombie already. I don't have a Venom Troll in my collection that's painted yet. So there's this. I have a beholder zombie. Now I've already got a beholder zombie in my collection, but I could paint this one. That shouldn't be too much of an issue. I think that will definitely take me probably, I would say, 3 sessions to get through it. It's probably about just over 4.5 hours to get through. So I would say about 3 live streams. So there's that one. And then I have this green slard, which is really complicated. And if I paint it, it's probably definitely going to take 3 sessions to get all the way through that little sucker, considering what it is. So that's your choices. The green slard, the ackhead, the big insect, which may take about 2 sessions. The beholder zombie, or a venom troll, because I've got a venom troll now. I've used a venom troll in a game. Man, did I cause some strife for my players. And then the ogre zombie here. Okay, so a lot of zombie stuff going on, but yeah. So those are the final discussion choices for those of you who wanted to know. And if you're here, a good opportunity to vote, because this will probably be the last miniature that I paint while I'm on holiday. And then after that, it's back to normal programming. So what have we got? Come on, people, fight it out. Fight it out. We've got Venom Troll as 1 vote. We've got the Beholder Zombie as another vote. I am going to end this poll here. End that poll. And I'm going to put up... Should I do another poll right now while I'm here? I should just go to the beach, frankly. I think that's probably what I should be doing. But I could put in another poll for those people who don't want to leave a comment. What should I paint next? Should I paint next? All right, so we've got that. Here we go. I'm putting in the options. Beholder. Did I get it right? Can I even spell? Probably not. Beholder Zombie is on the cards. Putting in Venom Troll since it's already come up. Venom. I'm kind of excited about the idea of a Venom Troll. The large weed. Oh, really? Then what else was there? That's that one. There's that one. Then I put down the ogre zombie. I'm really not too keen on doing the insect myself. That can wait till some other day, frankly, as far as I'm concerned. I can see people are already making big votes. Here we go. That's good. All right. What's the other one that we're going to put in there? Green slard. All right, I'm ready to release my poll. Here we go. Bam. Spamming away, people. Spamming away. All right, there you go. There's that poll there. They'll tell me how many different people want what. And I guess since you were willing to hang around for so long while I do this, the Oblex. I don't M14. I don't actually have an Oblex miniature. I've used an Oblex miniature in my game. Can I just say to anybody who decides to use the Oblex miniature, Oblex as stat block, that monster, when you get the opportunity to plane shift away, do so. Okay, don't let the monster, even if it didn't get a chance to do anything because it rolled really low on an initiative, which tends to happen with oozes, please get it to plane shift away so it can come back at a later date and cause some untold strife for everybody else. That would be my advice to you. So yes, we've had a lot of fun. I can see we see some votes coming in. Have we got a few people voting? We've got 6 people voting. We've got about 10 people in the chat, which means the green slide is not going to get done. It looks like the Beholder Zombie. I always find that everybody wants me to paint Beholders. Like, do you know how many Beholders I've painted now? I've painted about 2 on live streams. I've got 2 on me. I've got this Beholder Zombie. I've got the standard zombie, standard Beholder that I haven't painted that Nolzur's put out as well. M14. HowtoDandD, quote, I'm ready to release my poll. That's different. Okay, all right. I was not intending to say, I didn't want it to sound like that. This is not what I was expecting. I know, I was not supposed to sound like that. Okay, people, vote on that poll. Determine what I will be doing. I have to say I am much happier with this miniature than I thought I would be. Vote the troll guys as we can dissect troll variants. Yeah, well, that's true. Otherwise, you might have to tolerate me talking about beholders. That might not be a good thing. How many times have I talked about beholders? Like a lot? Probably a lot. Yeah. So yes, I would say if you're going to paint this, absolutely have a couple of small brushes, some bigger, larger brushes. Definitely go with something like a range of colors so you can do a gradient, and you don't need to worry. It's just the heads that are the worst part, which is to be expected. I think most people realize that. Standard beholder equals large, yeah, basically a large loogie. I find them, they're fine as a miniature to paint. It's just how often do you get to use them? I think that's the thing that I always found is the thing that stands out for me is like how often will you actually get to use it? I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to use this Yuan-Ti. This Yuan-Ti is going to absolutely scare the bejesus out of my players. Oh look, the fight is on. Oh my gosh, we're now tied between the Beholder Zombie and the Venom Troll. I'm going to show. Look, let's put them out here. Since I've painted this miniature, people have seen this. Let's put these two miniatures that are fighting for a home. Which one will it be? They're saying, paint me, paint me. Which one will I paint? Paint me. I will move them up so you can see them as the last people in this live stream who haven't voted yet, who are probably not that interested in painting anyway. So this is the Venom Troll and this is the Beholder Zombie, and I think they're pretty cool miniatures as miniatures go. It's just, can I just look there? There we go. Put that there. I knew that those bottles of paint had another use other than the one that I normally use. Dear, that's funny. And it's still an even Stevens. Now, you know that if I wind up breaking the vote, you know what I'm probably going to pick, eh? You know what I'm probably going to pick if I have to break the vote. Come on, somebody break the vote. I know you can. Nicole, I admire that. The bartender of the Laughing Beholder. Now, would that be paint me troll? Paint me troll. All zombies are cool. I think zombies are only cool if they can impart some sort of disease or cause them to turn somebody else into a zombie. That's just my feeling. It's like zombies right now in Dungeons & Dragons 5e are super dull. They just don't have anything to them. I'm calling it, I think it's going to wind up being a tie. I really do. I am just cleaning up my workspace before I go to the beach. And I feel like unless somebody else votes, it is going to be classified as a full-blown tie, and that the one that I pick could be either one of those. And given that I have painted very few trolls and quite a few beholders, I feel like the troll may wind up winning out in the end. I know that, look, I am totally aware that more people will watch me painting a beholder that is a zombie than painting a Venom Troll, for sure. What's that? 7 votes and 8 viewers, 1 being you. Well, it could be, am I classified as a viewer? I might well be classified as a viewer. I might well be. I can't actually vote, apparently, on my own polls, which makes sense. It doesn't make any sense if I can vote on my own poll. I'd have to be signed in as somebody else, which is not going to happen. What's that? Flowers of Veprak, gatherer for the glory of our Lord. Now, what does that mean? They are both cool. I am trolling you. M14, you're right. I am trolling everybody here. In the most cruel manner that I can possibly think of. It did give me an idea of what people preferred. But yes, I have to admit I am trolling you big time and taking the piss, which it's, you know, it happens sometimes. Anyway, I think that's where we close the poll at a draw, and I will move on And you will have to move on with your life as well and just see what ends up happening tomorrow. You never know. It could be that I wind up painting one of these miniatures in one session. I find that very unlikely. Oh. Alright, I'm feeling better now. And it is time to close the poll. He's the god of trolls. So you'll find out tomorrow whether I'm doing a Beholder Zombie or the Venom Troll. Dun dun dun. Or I could roll a dice. I could roll a dice in front of you and make it even worse. And more torture is to roll a dice and do it randomly. Cool, blimey. Should I do it randomly? Mate, I'm going to roll. I'm definitely going to roll randomly. Let's do a random roll. Here we go. Since nobody's voting, it takes a vote to get me to change my mind at this point. I'm getting a D20, which is quite large. This is a D20. So I'm going to say 1 to 10 is the Beholder Zombie. Oh, there we go. Somebody voted. It has been broken. I almost rolled the dice, but I don't need to now. It's the Venom Troll. Let's close that off. For those of you who were spamming Venom Troll the whole time, Gabby, the number of times you put it in is quite a few. We are painting the Venom Troll. This is our buddy for tomorrow, and probably for the day after. And that is that. So well done for those of you who decided to jump in there and break that vote. You've done exceedingly well. I was impressed. I thank you to everybody who showed up and watched this very, very long live stream, which is almost 2 hours long. Thank you to my patrons who support me. Thank you to everybody who watches my videos and doesn't run a ad blocker. Now, if you want to support the channel, so I keep doing video content because I make lots of stuff for players and dungeon masters, you're welcome to go and check out. If you want to support the channel, you can do through Patreon. The Amazon affiliate link's down in the description. There's also the merchandise shelf, or just watch my videos, okay? Just watch my videos, that's fine too, okay? I get some AdSense revenue from them. Do the usual YouTube things like share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. I go live every week, by the way. Right now I'm a bit more than that, but usually it's once a week. And wherever you are in the world, whether it be the morning, the afternoon, the night, or the wee early morning, please look after yourself, your family, and your friends, and be nice to your neighbours. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.